1983 AD, 5877 AM. Israeli Defense Minister Ariel Sharon resigns over the massacre of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon in 1982. Over 30 people are killed in the bombing of the US Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon. And 6 months later, in October, a suicide bomber kills 262 US servicemen and 62 French troops in Beirut, or 324 men, 108 times 3. In 1983, the United States developed the nuclear missile shield known as the Star Wars program. In Britain, anti-nuclear protesters form a 14 miles long human chain, and similar protests occur in Italy, the Netherlands and West Germany. The breakdown of nuclear stockpiling between the USA and USSR stops as both nations begin increasing their nuclear stock. In Canada, 80,000 people in various cities protest the proposed testing of US cruise missiles in Alberta. The Soviets shoot down a Korean passenger jet, killing all 269 people aboard over Soviet territory, making unsupported claims of spying. Hurricane Alicia devastated Galveston, Texas. NASA launched the IRAS space telescope, which takes pictures of the heavens in infrared. It photographed comet Archaix-Alcock, which was the closest known comet in 200 years. The IRAS telescope orbiting Earth had discovered that comets are rich in dust, especially burned-out comets. Some comets have no visible tails of evaporating gases, but they do have almost invisible dust tails. The IRAS telescope discovered that a Neptune-sized planet was heading toward the inner solar system from far away, detected early in the year but not publicized. It was again detected by the IRAS space telescope toward the end of the year. On the final day of 1983, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory reported that through IRAS they had discovered Planet X, announced by the chief NASA scientist over the IRAS program. It was reported that IRAS discovered beyond Pluto an extremely far, quote, mystery celestial body, unquote. It was said to be 4 times the size of Earth and moving toward us. Later, NASA retracted the statement after it had appeared in major newspapers all over America. It is a distinct possibility that IRAS discovered planet Phoenix, which was 57 years away from returning to the inner solar system in 2040 AD, 81 years after it had passed through in 1902, and 1983 was exactly 12 years after Phoenix reached aphelion, the furthest distance from the Sun. Further calendrical evidence that this was planet Phoenix is the fact that 1983 was 207 years since the birth of the United States in 1776, 207 years being half a Phoenix cursed Earth cycle of 414 years, or 2484 months, 414 times 6. Also in this year, the University of Chicago scientists gathered evidence from past catastrophes noting mass extinctions at regular intervals. Their research and conclusions finalized in 1984. The US Pioneer 10 spacecraft crosses the orbit of Neptune. On its opening day, the movie Return of the Jedi grossed $6.2 million. US intelligence agencies discovered that the Israelis had prior knowledge of the Beirut bombings that killed 242 US servicemen and 62 French troops, but did not warn US nor French officials. 1. 20th century events. 4. The end times. Prophecies of coming changes. 5. Foundations of astronomy. 6. The end of days. 7. Great disasters. 9. Jewish supremacism. 1984 AD, 5878 AM. 2 independent research think tanks of astrophysicists and astronomers took the research findings from the University of Chicago, made in 1983 and 84, both groups arriving at the same conclusions. Our solar system either once was or is still a binary system, having 2 stars, and that its sister star must be a dark star, a compressed star also called a frozen star, called Nemesis or the Death Star. This is also the conclusion of CHRONICON 1, c. 5239 to 3895 BC. Both planets Phoenix and Nibiru orbit between these 2 stars. China and Britain signed an agreement returning Hong Kong to China in 1997, with China agreeing to maintain its capitalist system until the year 2047 AD. Such an agreement hints that elitists are already aware that the city of Hong Kong and much of China will be destroyed in the cataclysm of 2046 AD, when Nibiru returns. Civil war and unrest continue in Lebanon at Beirut, and in India, a toxic leak at Union Carbide Chemical Company in Bhopal kills at least 2,500 and causes maladies in 200,000 others. Ronald Reagan wins the presidential re-election in a landslide victory. In Israel, the Temple Institute becomes official, with the objective to rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount, where presently the Muslim Dome of the Rock is located. This is exactly 2520 years, 360 times 7, after 537 BC, when Babylon fell to Persia, and the Persians acquired the Holy Temple artifacts from the Babylonians that had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem in 585 BC. Also, 1984 was the middle of the Iran-Iraq War, or again the war between Babylon and Persia. American amateur archaeologist Ronald Wyatt and his sons are jailed for 75 days in Saudi Arabia for investigating a peculiar mountain many people believe is the real Mount Sinai of the scriptures, where Moses received the Ten Commandments, located in Arabia. At the mountain site in Arabia are the remains of 12 pillars and petroglyphic evidence that the Israelites out of Egypt had been at the site. After the release of Ron Wyatt and his sons from Saudi Arabia, they appeared on CBS Morning News. 1. Great disasters. 2. Predictions for a new millennium. 3. 20th century events. 4. Discovered Noah's Ark.